Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Salty Triangle. I keep forgetting. You know, the last time you forgot the Salty Triangle, how we were called, and now I forgot
did.
it. This
I
is
did,
be...
and it was a lot funnier when I forgot it.
It's
I mean, now it's a bit sad that we can't remember the.
We're just three friends talking. Like, who cares what we're called?
Exactly. By the way, guys, so to everybody out there, just so you know, this is our, I think, fourth or fifth take actually doing this stupid intro.
I did it perfectly first time, but it was
No, he
too...
did. I mean, he did, but it was too
robotic.
perfect.
It was too perfect. I do things too perfectly. I've got to nerve myself. Anyway, yeah, we are here to talk more about anime and manga and culture, stuff like that. Yes, I mean it wasn't apparent the first time around, so I guess we probably should mention that this time around.
Hey, by the way, guys, just in case you didn't catch on in episode 1, this is an anime podcast.
It is an anime podcast, yes. And today, our main topic, which we'll be talking about in a moment, is going to be on what good taste is, why it's
when
important.
He says in a moment, he really means it like somewhere between half an hour and an hour.
It could be 5 minutes. It could be 5 hours. Who knows?
We don't know.
5 hours is gonna be a little.
I mean, the power of editing, right?
The power of editing. Oof. Yeah, 5 hours. I'm not sure if everyone else in this entire house is gonna be up to me talking 5 hours and keeping them awake all that time. Yeah. No. Yeah, good taste in anime, why it's important, and how to get it yourself. Or not, I guess, if it's not important at all.
Be prepared for hot takes.
Be prepared. Yes, I'm very excited, because this is...
Okay, but also Speedy and Pory and me too, we should like all be prepared to get all the hate in the world.
I think there's going to be some pretty lukewarm takes, actually. I don't think there's going to be very many hot takes.
No.
You don't know that.
If we're talking about good taste, we're absolutely going to be talking about bad taste. So
Exactly.
Well, that's assuming that we, believe in good taste in the first place.
That is a very good point.
that is true, but then that's a good thing to talk about. Why? But before that, I want to ask you the same question that I did last time. What have you guys been watching? Sheila.
Okay, so how long has it been since our last recording?
It's been nearly a month, I think. Nearly a month.
Nearly
It's been 4 weeks. It's been 4 weeks because we've had some problems in getting schedules down. And then one thing came up, and then another thing came up. So, but here we are. What have you been watching since last time? Since free.
You know what? While I look that up, why don't you start off with Pory, because I'm actually not sure.
Okay, Pory, we're starting again with you. I feel like you've mostly been watching the seasonals, I guess.
Well, I've been dropping the seasonals. I don't know if I've been watching them.
They're worth dropping, I guess.
Yeah, last time I think I was watching 23 seasonals.
Oh shit!
And now I'm watching 11 new shows. So
that's more than 50% dropped.
Yeah.
Is there anything worth talking about? Why it's dropped? Was it just plain bad or plain boring?
No, it was definitely not bad. It was just like you've definitely seen the shows before several times.
Right.
And so I just was like, well, this is kind of a waste of my time.
Because we talked about By the Grace of Gods, and I remember you saying, well, this could go
I'm pretty
a lot
sure
of ways.
I'm pretty sure I watched the next episode the next day, and I dropped it that day. So that was pretty...
do you remember
I figured.
why?
I saw that one coming.
That's a month.
Because the show was like very, 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 very ugly. Like really, really ugly.
Ugly in like animation or the drawing style or what? Animation
was pretty bad.
Animation was pretty bad.
There was this scene where there was like a mudslide, and like the army was like, oh, we can't go back to the kingdom. What are we gonna do? And so the kid shows up with his slimes, and in the most like PS1 CG scene you've ever seen, the slimes like start picking up rocks that don't look like they actually exist in the terrain, and start carrying them away.
They just apparate out of nowhere, out of the ground or something.
Yeah. No, they were like... Well, he's actually like... Well, it was pretty silly, but like, yeah, he can like compact them and whatever. But yeah, and then so it just didn't look like he's basically pulling terrain out of nothing, and then these like really bad CG slimes were like waddling off a screen with their disgusting looking bricks and.
Okay, but why on earth would you make the slimes of all things CG? Like they're basically
No,
squishy balls and squishy
only
balls.
in that scene they were CG. In the rest of the show, they're just like everything else. It was just that specific scene where they were all like, doing manual labor that they were CG. It was really bizarre.
It's like how the other slime show that we've had like 2 years ago also had, I think, CG right at the start.
Yeah, well, yeah. But
that looked good.
Yeah, that one had he had a light like shining from the middle, and so it was really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about slime isekai?
Yeah, the slime isekai. Yeah.
I don't remember that. I just
It
watched
was
too.
It was right at the beginning when he spawns in the cave and it's like pitch black.
Yeah. That's right. I was thinking about how out of place that looked.
It did look out of place, but it wasn't bad. And since then, they just dropped the whole CG. I think. I don't think they did any CG afterwards.
Oh, they did, but just on the big the orc armies.
Yeah. Oh,
which again also kind of looked out of place, but I kind of get it because it's so much like animating a whole a ridiculous amount. First of all, animating walk cycles is stupidly difficult. Like no matter how good you get at it, there's just walk cycles is one of the most difficult things to animate just because we humans are our human eye is so attuned to it, so you need to get every little detail right. And doing that in CG is just so much easier. And then second off, having huge amounts of people like that or of characters like that and animating all of that is, in a TV production, is doing that traditionally is basically impossible with the resources and the time that you have. So you kind of have to do it CG.
I mean, in CG you could just make one of them and you could just copy paste everywhere and just have it work basically. Whereas
that's why people don't like it.
I mean,
that is true on the one hand side, but on the other hand side, it's like, in order to make a good animation actually takes longer in CG than a good animation does in traditional. Point number one. And then before you even get to the animation, you have the pipeline, which is, you have to model the character, rig the character, skin the character, texture the character. And Speedy, you've seen how long that took for me with a robot, which is, a robot is one of the easiest things to rig, skin, and texture. Anything that is organic takes 3 times as long.
To be honest, you're a student, and some of the people that are working in the animation studio, the industry, do this stuff for 30 years, so they probably are a little bit faster.
No. Absolutely not, because here's the thing, is there is actually in Japan, there is no proper CG school.
I mean, I guess that's true. I mean...
And CG in the industry itself is fairly new, so people have been doing that at the longest, unless they come out of the film industry, into the animation industry. At the longest, I've been doing that for 15 years, which isn't that long by comparison.
I'm trying to think of CGI that I know of from Japan, and I think Final Fantasy has some stuff like that. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, but Final Fantasy, Square... First of all, that one was produced by Square. It wasn't produced by an anime studio. It was produced and created from beginning to end by Square, the gaming studio. And Square has always been known... the gaming industry in terms of CG productions of any kind is, way ahead of the animation industry in Japan. But also because one of the reasons is because they're so much more international. And then the other thing is Square, specifically, was always known from the very beginning to be the front runner in terms of realistic CG animation and realistic looking gameplay.
Bringing it back though, 11 out of 23 from last time we talked. What has survived so far, Pory? What are the good contenders so far?
Good contenders
that you haven't already maybe.
I would say average contenders. I don't know. But,
there are no good ones again.
Well, it's just like.
Not even Jujutsu Kaisen?
I would say that's probably what I would call anime of the season. But my opinion on that changes every week. The only reason I say it's Jujutsu Kaisen is because that's the only show that I look forward to watching every week. I don't think it's like particularly like stellar, but I look forward to watching it.
You mentioned last time after we did the recording of the episode that you didn't talk about your favorite one. Is that the one? Is Jujutsu Kaisen?
No.
That has changed since then.
Yeah, my favorite then was Dragon Quest, and that was when I think there was 2 episodes out, maybe 3 episodes.
Yeah. I think so.
That's that I liked the first episodes because it felt like the show could be anything, and it was kind of just like watching like an early Pokemon season or like a early 2000s like kids show, which is basically what it is. But now that it's gotten into the story, it's just like young shonen protagonist fights demon because he was told to, and so
that's basically Dragon Quest in a nutshell. Though, if you know anything about Dragon Quest, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
So yeah, now the plot, and they've even laid it out like a video game. It's based on a manga, but obviously the base source material is a video game, and the show has explained like the tiers of bosses and the different magic systems and like how the main character will progress throughout the setting, and like they basically explained the entire show last episode. So I probably could just drop it now and tell you what happens, to be honest,
because you didn't play the games, right?
I've never played the games.
Yeah. Did you play the game, Sheila?
I've never played a full game because like I've never had a game, but I played like bits and snippets at friends' places and friends' consoles.
Straightforward game then, just catch
yes,
monsters.
it's very straightforward. I mean it's Dragon Quest, so they always have like really good subplots, and the story in itself are actually fairly interesting half the time, and it's also like the gameplay is also really fun. At least on the ones that I've played, but in terms of how like it's not a Final Fantasy, let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, I know some people were like saying that about the show like from the beginning, who had actually played, because I don't really play JRPGs that much.
I love JRPGs.
And they were talking, and they're like, this is because Dragon Quest is such a important title for that genre. Watching a show about it now that the genre has evolved so much, it feels like you're just back at the beginning of the whole JRPG thing, but you're watching a show instead of playing a game, so it feels very unnecessary. So, and I think that's probably true. Yeah, now that the plot's rolling, I definitely can feel that a lot more than I did at the start of the show.
Unfortunate then that it's not as hype as you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I think the other show that might be my favorite is Adachi to Shimamura, which is like a Yuri show.
You really love your cute girls, huh?
Well, I mean, give me a break.
No. I don't give people breaks. This is me we're talking about here.
Yeah, and the problem with that, like, it's very, very pretty, first of all. I love the color design, except for this, like, bizarre alien character who has, like, fluorescent blue hair, but,
Anime.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, and her hair, like, sparkles. It's bizarre, but whatever. And then... and then it has these really nice, like, visual metaphor scenes where, like, one that sticks out in my mind is she's trying to confess to the other girl, and she's like, she falls into like a body of water, that classic, drowning, suffocating thing.
Right.
I'm a big fan of that metaphor. And there's one where she's like in this field of like white flowers bundled in like a white cloth. And they have like that, romantic, they run towards each other kind of thing. And then they like bundle up in the flowers. That was very cute. But the problem is when they don't do that, a lot of it is just like the girl who like is obviously gay staring at the girl who is like ambiguously gay and thinking like, I want to kiss this girl. I want to hold this girl's hand. And she's like debating with herself if it's like okay that she wants to do that.
Premarital hand holding is never okay.
Thanks for that. And so like as and as the audience, we know what she's gonna say. She's gonna say like, "I want to hold your hand" or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, shall I do it? Shall I not? Oh." And I like it makes sense like for the narrative that she wouldn't just be like saying it immediately.
It
But
takes
we
forever.
know what's gonna happen. So it's kind of just like us we're waiting for her to catch up with herself, even though we know it's really
Right.
So it hurts the pacing a lot. If it didn't have that, it would probably be anime of the season for me. But because there's like at least one scene like that every episode, it just pulls it behind Jujutsu Kaisen, I think.
Because what is the show? Is it just about a?
It's just like a sexual awakening show. There's a girl who is like very antisocial, and she meets this like kind of delinquent. I mean, she just like bunks off school a lot. Not really delinquent, but she meets this other girl, and she realizes that she's like made her first real friend. All that kind of sappy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and she falls in love with her, and
The girl meets girl story, basically the stand, and then there's also an alien there.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Random
they haven't
alien.
explained. Yeah, and she likes donuts, so they're ripping off Shinobu, which is epic.
Shinobu
she's
from
just-
Pokemon Monogatari.
Yeah. She's just there to like, be annoying. Yeah, she's supposed to be like learning human culture or whatever, but she's just like annoying. Don't know why she's in the show. Probably should just kick her off, but
Right. We'll probably hear from you later what her significance
about why
is in the
I
show.
dropped the show and why it was her fault. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Sheila, you've had enough time to look up what kind of stuff you've been watching.
Yes, I've actually watched quite a few very well-known shows. The first one is, look at that, Isekai hater me actually watching Isekai.
Right.
Which
'cause you-
is Slime Isekai. The time I got reincarnated as a slime.
And you liked it.
I did like it, yes. But I didn't like it so much for the isekai aspects because, like, whenever it reminded me that the guy did actually came from our world first, I just rolled my eyes at it. But anytime it was just him being that slime, how did I say it? How did I explain it to you before?
I don't know.
It's like Rimuru doesn't really feel much like a person. He feels more like like how in, let's say,
Like a
No Game No
slime.
Life, for example, you have this the god Tet, or or quite often you have these characters in both in video games and in anime who are like super powerful, who are like the gods of their world, or basically just these entities that are above and beyond anything that you can't really touch, and you're not supposed to touch in video games, like in
Exactly, yeah.
The Legend of Zelda, that would be the dragons, for example. You can't even fight the dragons because that's not their point. Or again, like in No Game No Life, Ted. There are probably more examples than that, but that's kind of what Rimuru feels like. It feels like we're not watching the story of the hero. It feels like we're watching the ascent, the story of a person like that. Somebody who eventually just becomes like one of these deities that just kind of exists there. It's neutral to everything and anything, and just kind of does his own thing that you can't really touch, that you're not really supposed to touch. And when thinking of it like that, that's kind of how I looked at it, or that's how I looked at Rimuru, and so that was very enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And then in the second half, he goes to the human village, and then he does all of the, oh yeah, I know my manga from like my life, and I know all of these fun things from the human world, and from Earth, and
Gets a bit
that's
meta,
when it
yeah.
that's when it dropped for me a bit, because again, Rimuru doesn't really feel human, so bringing the human aspect back just kind of disturbed the entire thing for me. But yeah, I like the isekai more for the fantasy aspect rather than the isekai aspect. Duh, who'd have thought?
So for the people that don't know what slime isekai is, I mean, pretty straightforward title, to be honest. It's a guy.
It's a guy about who gets reincarnated as a slime. There you have it.
Yeah,
it's
he
literally
dies,
the title. That
he becomes
time
a
I get
slime.
reincarnated as a slime. Goodness gracious.
And he's overpowered. He's overpowered because he gets to swallow a dragon that's also in the cave that he is in.
Well, that's part of it, but the other part is also like slime. Apparently, slime in that world don't have like any intelligence or anything, and he does. And so because he's stuck in that cave at the very beginning, you know, he just spends, God, well, I don't even know how long. Probably like several months, just, you know, like swallowing swallowing like
Or
high quality
magic plants.
magic and like high quality material after high quality material, and at the end, you know, he swallows a dragon, although the dragon is still, isn't he still in
his little cave
in the bubble,
yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
I think
sealed
Rimuro
away,
doesn't
yeah.
have any access to the dragon's power yet, does he?
Oh no, he didn't. He just
Because
was-
when he eats the fire spirit bloke in like episode 8 or whatever, the punchline of that episode is the spirit, like the dragon goes like, "Hey," I think his name's Ifrit.
Yeah, Ifrit.
Hey, Ifrit. Yeah.
Which is, by the
So-
way, a very typical summon for Final Fantasy. That's another thing that I rolled my eyes at, because of course they're using an RPG Final Fantasy summon. What else would they be using? So yeah, aside from that, so I really liked that time I got reincarnated as a slime. But again, you know, for me it's more like the origin story of one of these untouchable neutral beings, rather than, you know, the story of the hero who got reincarnated.
It's more than just an isekai,
Yeah.
basically.
And again, the isekai aspects were my least favorite, by far my least favorite part about it. Aside
What
from that, I've
else?
also watched Given.
I'm sorry, what?
I
Given.
dropped that.
Uh
Given.
huh.
I don't know what it is.
You don't know what
actually.
Given
it
is?
new?
It's this, no, well, new-ish. I think it came out in 2018 or something. About
I think
these,
it came out last. I'm pretty sure it came out last year.
or last 2018, 2019. It's fairly recent. And it's about it's a boy love anime. And like, I'm not easily sold on gay couples just because, you know, they don't tickle my sweet spot. But like, I got so invested in them that when they finally happened, I was like squealing, like squealing. And what else did I watch? Oh yeah, Rakugo. So I think those were the three big ones. Given, Rakugo, you know, Showa Genroku damn it.
Oh yeah.
Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju. There we go. And that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
All three recommendations.
Absolutely yes.
Okay.
I honestly cannot tell you which one of them is better because they're all really good. They're all really different too. Like a slime isekai is, you know, it's like cute and uplifting. So like, you know, if you're down in the dumps or sick or something and just need something cute and something lighthearted, that's that. Given is, you know, more dramatic. So it's like if you have a heartache kind of a thing, that's the best time to watch that. Rakugo is, if you want something a little more sophisticated, Rakugo would be the best place to go.
I think Given has the same problem I had with Shimamura, but to like the nth degree. Because anytime the main character is on screen, what could be a 2-minute conversation takes about 11 minutes. And it's like, I like the university kids a lot, the older two.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me upset that I dropped the show, because if they were the main characters, I would love it.
You know there's
But
a movie where those two are the main characters.
Okay, well, I'll probably watch the movie then. That sounds a good time to me.
know.
But any time that main character was on screen, I wanted to... I put the
Okay,
videos like
okay,
2
wait.
times speed.
The singer main character or
The
the guitar
autistic
player
one.
main character?
No, the singer that's autistic.
Yeah, he does feel... I don't know. Maybe have Speedy watch it and have him be the judge of that.
Like, I get that he's supposed to be, like, nervous and stuff, but there has to be a better way to show that he's nervous.
I
than
don't
just
think
make
he
him...
feels... I don't think he feels... He never felt nervous to me. He just felt a little off.
Is he canon autistic?
No.
I think the show...
But he's very heavy...
I'm pretty sure it's explicitly said that he's autistic.
The show doesn't say it.
I'm pretty sure they do.
No, they don't.
I'm pretty confident about that.
No, they don't. You
No,
didn't
I'm
even finish the
pretty
goddamn show.
Well, so they say it in the first 4 episodes. Cause
No, they don't.
All right, well, we'll have to put a pin in that one and then come back to it later.
Yeah, follow up for for the next episode. I've never heard of this show, so I will just put that on my list. See if I like it.
It's good. Yeah, the main character is a bit strange. Like, how do I put this? So
I feel like
you like he carries a guitar around and he can't actually play the guitar, right? And then the other main character. So okay, singer main character and guitar player main character, right? Basically it's they meet. Singer main character wants to learn how to play the guitar for reasons we do not know yet. He has like a really expensive guitar on him, but doesn't even know the basics of music. Guitar player main character is kind of like a mom friend, so when the two of them meet and he realizes just how helpless the guy is, like he can't really leave him alone anymore. But at the beginning, like guitar player main character is just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to get wrapped up in, like whatever he wants of me. And singer main character just follows him around everywhere until he finally decides to teach, like until guitar player main character teaches him how to play the guitar. And at that point,
sounds like a cute dynamic.
Yeah, except that singer main character is a bit weird because like he literally doesn't make any conversations for the first like episode or two outside of teach me how to play the guitar. Like guitar player main character will try to just say no, I won't, like just leave me alone, or like revert the conversation to something else. Like he'll talk about why don't you know about playing music, and singer main character will be like teach me how to play the guitar. Yeah, are you listening to me? Teach me how to play the guitar. And that's how it goes for like 3 whole episodes.
I'm gonna put a pin in that.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm
it's
gonna
good.
put
I
it on my
absolutely
list.
like if you can roll. Like Pory said, I can totally see like the singer main character being the big turnoff because he is a bit weirdly written. Also, the acting in that, like one of the first things that I've noticed is the acting is really strange.
Oh, but I do love the performances in Given though.
Especially the performance. Please tell me that did you get to the actual performance?
I don't think so. I remember where they all play in episode 1.
Because like the actual performance is the worst piece of shit CG you've ever seen.
Oh yeah, but that's true for like I don't know what is their obsession with making music performances in anime CG when the rest of the
then
show
you can
is
move the camera around, and it's a lot easier to have the camera move around a CG figure.
They don't even move the camera in that
the perspective.
They don't even move it in that moment.
Oh, because a lot of idol shows that I see clips of is like, but the moment they give their concert, the camera moves around everywhere. But
and I thought the reason they did it in idol shows is because they transcend into a different like universe when they perform, and they're like on this like, and they have like all these weird set pieces on the stage and all these weird effects going on, like when they perform. So I kind of get it in idol shows, but like there's a show this season about like rap battling. Oh my god, this show's so funny.
Okay, go.
So basically, this like extremist feminist group takes over Japan, and because they think that violent weapons are like a show of masculinity or whatever, they ban violent weapons, and so all combat is done through like rapping. Okay. And you have like JoJo stands.
That sounds like No Game
battles.
No Life, but with rap rather than with games.
Like you can like the military bloke in it when he raps, he like spawns tanks and shoots the guys with tanks.
This is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
What was my point? Oh, that's in CG as well. There we go. That was my
That's the connection between the two. I haven't been watching a lot of anime actually. I mean, I've been given a month to watch stuff, and I didn't at all. I've been preoccupied with other things that I really like,
AKA the podcast.
Amongst that, yes, Minecraft speedrunning is also another one. No, I've tried Nichijou. I've watched Nichijou I think 8 episodes way back in 2013, 2014. And I remember liking it, but it's an episodic show. So, like, I just left it there at 8 episodes watched, and I just figured I'd get to it eventually. So I put it on my list not too long ago, and I got to it 2 weeks ago. And I couldn't get into it. I used to think that the humor in Nichijou was really funny, and it was kind of funny, yeah. But it felt so pointless. It felt so pointless because there's no point to the humor. It's just short skits surrounding around 6 of the same main characters, and that's it. It's just skits. And I felt like why am I watching this? Why is this important to me to finish? And I just dropped it, and I was really surprised that I was dropping this show, because it's been praised to hell and back for its animation quality and because the comedy is so good. So yeah, did neither of you?
I mean, the thing about like episodic shows like Nichijou, I know I haven't watched Nichijou yet, but like the point about episodic shows like this is you're not supposed to watch them all at once. It would have maybe worked better for you if you had just watched maybe an episode or so a week.
But
I mean, I'm watching, like, what I've been watching for the past several weeks is Mushishi, and, you know, just like you, like, I can't really get into it, but I do enjoy watching, like, an episode. I've never even watched 2 one after another, and that's me, like, the hardcorest binger you'll ever meet. But just watching, like, an episode here or there, you know, before
maybe I
bedtime.
should do that. Maybe I should do that, because I've tried to do as much of binging as I can lately. I don't even watch seasonals anymore because I can't binge them. Because I only start stuff and then I leave it at 2 episodes in because I lose interest or I have other things to do. But when I binge, I can just go on and on and on and on and on and stay in that flow and stay in that mindset of wanting to watch more of the same show.
Yeah, that's the reason why I usually binge too, but that does not work for every show. Not every show is built that way. Not every show is best enjoyed that way.
Maybe I'll just watch 1 episode a week of that. Maybe I'll do that. And the second show that I've been watching, and I've actually been group watching this in my own Discord, is Cowboy Bebop. We're almost finished with it. I think we've watched 18 episodes now. We watch 3 every week. And when I first watched it, and then finished it later on, I watched it in 2 parts. I think I watched the first 22 episodes way back, and then I think I finished it about a year or a year and a half ago. And my idea when I decided to watch it again with other people was like, oh, this is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be a great ride. We're gonna have so much fun here. And it's really good. I still think that Cowboy Bebop is really good because the animation is great. I love the voice acting. The voice acting in Cowboy Bebop.
Please tell me that you watch it in English.
No, I'm not watching it in English.
You gotta watch it in English.
Japanese.
But
maybe
you have to
I'll
watch it in English
another time.
Because like the English, you don't have to do it anytime soon. But at some point in your life, you have to watch it in English because up until this day, the Cowboy Bebop dub is just heavenly.
I've so many times I'm here from all kinds of people. You need to watch the dub, so I will eventually do it. But it's episodic, and what I do think is that most of the episodic episodes are pretty good. Their stories are fine. They work. Cowboy Bebop works on a logic of the rule of cool. So like maybe some things don't entirely make sense logically, but because it's cool, it still works. But
I actually heavily disagree with that. But go on.
I feel like no. Why?
No, you finish first. I'll get to that later on because that explanation could be a bit more long-winded.
But the story itself is pretty basic. The whole show really rides on the personalities of the main crew and the way they interact with one another, which is really good. But the story itself with the whole syndicate and how it all how that develops is pretty basic. I haven't gotten to the last few episodes yet. What I do remember is the last 4 to 6 episodes being some of the best I've ever watched. I really like, for example, the way that the kid, how is he called again? How is she called again? Ed. The way she eventually decides to leave. It's a very was a very good episode. And then also the whole development with God, I've forgotten all their names. The woman.
Faye.
Yes, Faye. How she is developed and how she's been frozen for 100 years or something like that, and then discovers her own past that she doesn't really remember. I think the moment she sees that tape of herself, just so very innocently, so very differently. That was a very good moment. That was episode 18, so I watched that like 2 days ago. That was a really, really, really good episode. I love that. But I think the story is a little lackluster to really carry it to masterpiece level. I don't think Cowboy Bebop is a masterpiece. I don't think it deserves that label. What do you think? Because you had something to say.
Yeah, I completely and utterly disagree. I do actually believe that Cowboy Bebop is a masterpiece, but here's the thing: is how do I put this? What it sets out to do is very different from what you would usually find in anime, because most anime are very before the slice of life genre got big, let's put it that way. Most anime were very story driven, as much story driven as character driven, if not more character driven than story, if not more so. So if not more story driven than character driven. Cowboy Bebop is not like that. Everything that happens and every decision made in the show revolves around the characters and around the characters only. These are characters whose stories have already been told.
Yeah.
And so, now what we get to see, what this shows is not the story of the characters, because as I said, that has already happened. But them being people, living out their everyday lives in this weird setting that they have been put in. And basically dealing and making their decisions and dealing with the mindset they have been put into, with all of the mental problems, with all of the experiences, with all of the there is a word for if you're no longer if you're not naive anymore, and you kind of lost, the world doesn't glitter and shine for you anymore. There's a word for that.
Jaded.
Yeah, exactly. Jaded. With their jaded worldviews and what their experiences, what their stories has done to them, and that is mostly told not even through dialogue, or it's told in the small subtleties. The characters, and all of the teeny tiny assets and facets of them are told through subtleties in what happens in between the dialogue. It's told through the animation, hence that is the reason why the animation is so detailed, because it needs to convey all these tiny little details about the characters. It's told in their reactions to things. It's told in the stories, the individual stories that the director decides to focus on. And none of what happens in the end, when their stories do finally wrap up, or at least partly wrap up, none of that would have hit that hard if we hadn't gotten to know these characters as they are after their stories had been told. And then you have somebody like Ed, who is the exact opposite of that, whose story only just started when we get to meet her. And basically where her story ends is where the stories of all of the other characters begins.
Yeah, that's why her leaving the crew is so sad, because she has so much potential to become even more of a great character, but she leaves the crew, and as such she leaves the story. So you feel the impact there really hard, but she has such a good reason leave the show that it feels very natural.
Right. And so that's why I think Cowboy Bebop is a masterpiece, because it's unlike pretty much anything else seen in anime, in that we are not following the story of the characters, we're following the characters after their story is over. And that's why there isn't any overarching story there, because that's not what it's about. It's like saying that a comedy like isn't really good because it's not serious enough. In that vein, you know.
I guess I see what you're trying to say, but I don't know. I feel like something needs a little bit more of a. I mean, I guess the story isn't bad. It's. I mean, you're right.
I
guess
I'll
have to mull it. I guess I'll have to mull it over again.
I mean, it's like you said, there isn't much story in there. Or the story that is in there is fairly basic. That's because all of the twists and turns have already been taken. By the time that Cowboy Bebop begins, all of that is already over.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, the story is not what that show was about. The story is not important here. It's there just so to give give all of these characters a finish line. You know, to at some point get their character arcs and everything that's been happening to them and everything that has happened, you know, give all of that a resolution, give it, you know, a closing, especially in oh shit, I forgot the name of the main character.
Spike.
Spike, thank you, especially in Spike Spiegel's case. But, you know, again, it's character driven only. It's basically, you know, like an early version almost of a slice of life show. And in a slice of life show, the plot has never been important.
What do you think, Pory? Please tell me you've watched Cowboy Bebop.
I've never watched it.
Oh, God!
You got it. No, so Cowboy Bebop is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. It's very different, and you need to go in it expecting, you know, not a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, basically, which is, you know, as character-driven as it is story-driven, or pretty much more story-driven than it is character-driven only, almost. So don't go in with it with those kinds of expectations, or the typical shonen expectations, or, you know, even what you might know from most masterpieces, even in cinema in the West. But, you know, go into it expecting it to be its very own thing, and you can go in with high expectations, but try and go in without any expectations on like what you think it should look like, because it's not gonna look like that.
Would you say it's a acquired taste?
Well, oh, you know what? That's a difficult one.
Good segue. Good segue.
Yeah,
Good segue.
I was about to say, like, if you hadn't done the segue, I would have done the segue, but that's a difficult one to answer. Anyways, let's get on with the actual topic.
Because I just took the word taste into my mouth.
Yeah, good segue. Good segue. You did a good job.
Again, if Speedy hadn't done that, like, I was already like, that was the very moment that
I was already
Cowboy
thinking.
Bebop, I was like, we have to get there.
Yeah, he was drumming for ideas. He was like, how do I get the word taste in this sentence?
This water has a very good taste. Speaking of taste, no. Yeah, we decided to talk about good taste. So, like, the question at everyone's lips is there such a thing as good taste? And I think that it has something to do with the objectivity or subjectivity of art in general, and whether you can say that one piece of art is better than the other. Or do you think those two are separate things?
I mean, to quote Gigok here, anime is trash and so are we.
I've actually been thinking about this quite a little bit. I don't remember why, but I was thinking about it, and I used to not agree. I used to think it was just like a dumb meme, but now that I think about it, I think I do agree.
With what?
That anime is trash and so are we?
Well, I agree with the theory behind it, right? So, I think that your taste, let's say, is a manifestation of yourself, right? And so the shows that you like will be shows that you think reflect you the best. It's kind of like when you're voting for, your political candidate, you're trying to find the political candidate that reflects you the best.
Right.
And so the quote is like, the show and you are of equal, value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with that, with the quote, the theory at least. I don't know if I agree with the exact quote.
That you and the show are basically the same. Your taste in shows defines you.
Well, no, your self definition defines your taste. I don't know, something like that.
It's always been a very difficult thing, because like I believe that some media is better than other media. There are not just because there are rules in how you write a story, how you do one thing or another.
Well, guidelines.
Guidelines, but there's a way to write a bad story and there's a way to write a good story, right? Not all stories are on the same level, but there are certain levels that are how do you say this? That are equal to one another, right? You can't compare My Immortal to Game of Thrones, because My Immortal, being a fan fiction of Harry Potter that is notoriously very badly written, is just very bad. But at the same time, you also can't really compare Game of Thrones, which is really well written and it is just very good because of how the story is developed, to, I don't really have any examples of this, maybe probably Sheila does, to something like high literature of a
like
character.
Lord of the Rings.
I mean, is Lord of the Rings not similar to Game of Thrones in that it is mostly...
Okay, sorry, you're correct.
Isn't Game of Thrones also a novel?
Really, just because they're both in the fantasy genre, they're not really that similar to one another. But taking something more like that's a little bit far away, to something like Don Quixote.
I've heard of that. I've never read it. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing about Don Quixote, just because I have to.
Yeah.
I am like a bookworm of bookworms, okay? I swallow like The Hunger Games, all 3 books, in like less than a day and a half. Whenever I reread the Harry Potter books, I take a week at most for all 7 books. Put a book in front of me, and I will not come out of my cave until that book is finished.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember my teacher in PE would confiscate my bag at the beginning of the class, just because otherwise I would literally do PE with a book in my hand.
Right. But like,
I am completely overwhelmed with Don Quixote. The sentence lengths are so ridiculously long. Like, the sentences are so ridiculously long. The longest I've counted. The longest sentence in small print, right? So probably like, I don't know, calibre 11 or something, like really, really small. The longest sentence is a page and a half long.
That's, most people...
I cannot read more than 1 chapter at a time without getting tired.
Most people would say that's bad practice in writing. Because you need to...
it's really not, because the sentences are masterfully constructed.
Yeah, it's theoretically possible to write a sentence that has no end indefinitely. But...
Yeah, but like in writing, you generally want to avoid such sentences, I guess, unless you do write them very well. But I suppose there are people around who would say that Don Quixote is absolutely terrible and it should not be considered a good book. I don't know. We don't have those people here, so we'll just assume that Don Quixote is a good book. But what I want to say is that My Immortal, it being a terrible fanfiction, is worse than, say, Game of Thrones. So there is a grade of better to worse. So then liking something that is objectively worse would insinuate that you have a worse taste in whatever it is. So like there should be a grade of having bad or worse taste. I mean, whether you care or not about having such taste is an entirely different discussion. But such a thing should exist, I think.
Okay, so this whole I think that with something that is objective, quote unquote, it has to be fully objective or fully subjective. You can't be like, it's a bit objective. That doesn't exist. So which one do you think? So you think it's fully objective? Because unless you're going to tell me there's a reason for it to be a bit objective, but I would think that's a bit.
I've never thought about this in particular. Whether these questions are difficult. Let's just say I think that art is fully subjective, and no.
Okay.
No.
Fully objective. Okay.
Fully.
I thought that's a good. I was about to say that's a good opinion, but then you changed your mind.
Yeah, no, fully objective. No, I don't agree. I believe that at a certain point, I do agree. No, sorry. Again, I believe that there is a way to have it both objective and subjective, because some things can't be compared to one another because they are meant for one or the other thing, and in accomplishing what they want to do, they are equally as good. But other things just are terrible for a whole slew of reasons, and don't accomplish what they do or want to do, and as such they are worse. So like those things, those that you can't compare with one another, are subjectively good, and those that are worse, that are definitely worse than the other, are objectively worse. Do I make sense? Because this is...
Yes, but here's the... Okay, to follow up on this, because there are a few things you need to understand. So welcome to this new little mini segment of ours called Sheila Explains Everything.
We'll cut all of those out! No,
okay, no. Here's... Coming from an actual professional artist, on my end, because I might not be a professional animator quite yet, I'm still studying that, but I am a professional artist. I do make money through my commissions, thank you very much. Praise me. No, in all seriousness, do you guys know what art maturity is?
I've never heard of the term. I can take a guess.
Yeah, you're going to need to give us an explanation of that one.
Yeah. Okay, so art maturity is basically is the understanding behind what you are doing, right? So, for example, if you're drawing a person, art maturity comes from, at first, like the first thing that we learn when drawing people is drawing the gesture, aka, like the one line or maybe two lines at most that define the movement. Then, like, once you have the hang of this, once you understand what gesture is all about, it's does your art show knowledge of the anatomy of the human that you're drawing? Does it show that your clavicles, your sternums, the bones, and after, like, all of the bones, after that the muscles, from the important ones. You don't really need all of them as an artist, but you definitely need the important ones, from pectorals, abdominals, trapezius, deltoids, biceps, triceps, extensors, flexors. Knowing how the human body works together, and how all of these, like, bend and stretch and squash with a gesture. And then after that, once you have an understanding of that, is how good can you break down the volume of everything that you're drawing. Like, if you've ever opened a drawing book, you're gonna see all of these breakdowns into, like, putting the body into, into boxes or into cylinders or something. That's actually, like, the very last step when drawing. Or when learning how to draw. There are a whole slew of things to learn before that, but yeah. And so the art maturity is, like, how deep is the understanding of what you're drawing, and how well does your art reflect that? Is your art still stuck in that teenager phase? Because, like, kids are artists, like, naturally really good artists. But once you go out of the kid's phase and you try to, draw things more realistically, or more as you observe them, that's the phase that most people stay stuck in. Just like you as a person, your art has to grow up. It has to mature. And that process, that process of learning what you're drawing, understanding what you're drawing, and being able to break down what you're drawing is what we call art maturity.
And is that how you
yes.
use? Is that what you use to determine what is better than the other? You think, or is that not the point you're making?
We're not there yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
The art maturity. Now, I used the human body as the example, but really the art maturity goes with, for just about
everything.
It goes, it goes for writing, it goes for music, it's learning the rules and the guidelines, right? Learning them, understanding them, being able to break them out, being able to break them down. And so here's the thing with most pieces of entertainment is you can argue or not whether or not they're art. That goes for literature, that goes for anime, that goes for film, that goes for music, because they go by the rules still. There's a lot more to art than just that, so you can argue whether or not those are art. I would say they are, but those are for different reasons, maybe to discuss for another day. But most of the entertainment that we consume is basically following the rules, and at best bending them, right? Bending them, twisting them, seeing how far you can take them. Really good movies, or really, really good art, I would say, takes all of these rules, stretches them, squashes them, just plays around with them and see how far they can go.
Right.
But, so while they stay within the mindset of the rules, I think that art can absolutely be, objectively, reviewed or looked at, because at that point it's all about how well do they follow the rules and guidelines and what do they do with them on a creative level. But then at some point you get to a point where you break the rules, you break them on purpose, and that's where I don't know if have you ever heard the phrase, you need to know the rules to break them?
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
Pory?
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yeah. So that's where that comes in. If you, again, going back to the idea of a human, there's a big difference, especially in the educated eye, between not having the proportions correct on a human because you don't understand the proportions of a human, and drawing the proportions incorrectly on purpose. And when you get to the point where you break the rules on purpose, that's when you can no longer really look at art in any way. Then it really just turns into pure art. There's no way to judge in an objective way anymore, because then it's all about, it's all about appealing to the individual, and to some people it will appeal, to others it will not.
This is where abstract art comes from.
For example,
it's visually it's very easy to understand when you look at abstract art compared to
I remember having shown you art of Jackson Pollock. There's no way to judge something like that objectively. It's just not possible. That is a very, very subjective impression that you get from it. Either you like it or you don't. So yeah, there's that. Now what was the question that you asked, Speedy?
I was so can you use this art maturity as a way to judge whether one thing is better than the other, whether one thing is just good and the other is not as good?
Yes, you can.
But
here's the other thing is,
why do you disagree? Why do you disagree, Pory?
Okay, so I might go off on a bit of a tangent. But
go ahead.
So
go ahead.
So
Sheila does them too.
The way that I would explain this, what you're saying to myself, so I understand it better, is you're almost saying that there are conventions that people are almost they enjoy more as innately. That's just how people are. They prefer things to be in the way that you're saying, rather than not that way. Would that be a fair way of saying what you're saying?
I have to be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea what you just said.
No, but you...
Okay, so... Okay, oh my gosh, how do I explain this? Okay, so this art maturity, this is a way of drawing something so that it's in the most presentable form.
No.
But, okay.
Art maturity just means that your art shows that you understand what you're doing.
But you explained it like, okay.
I explained the process to get to art maturity. But if you really want to break it down, again, somebody can completely and utterly, going back to the human body, draw the human body out of proportions on purpose, right? And
it still be good.
But you need to know you need to know the proportions to be able to not draw the proportions the way they should be.
There's this is another point that I'll get to later on. But to the educated eye, there is a big difference between the person who draws the proportions wrong because he can't, and the person who draws the proportions wrong because he could but chooses not to. And the one who cannot does not have art maturity, and the one who chooses to do so on purpose has art maturity.
Okay, but now you're making it sound like art is like, well, art is obviously a skill, but art is something that you like level up. It's like an RPG. It's like an RPG, and you start at level 1, and you have to train your little skill tree to get to a certain point.
Yes.
And I don't think that's how it works.
That is literally how it is. That's how it is with every skill.
Okay, but right, so art is not something that exists, like, is like a part of the universe, right? It's not like a gas or a solid or a, it is something that we made up. Mm-hmm. And so we chose to make it up that way. Mm-hmm. So why can't we not just choose to make it up a different way?
Right. The rules for art maturity were made by humans. So and decided by humans. It's like making a law, but like other countries have different laws. So other people might have different ways to judge whether something is art maturity. That is 100% true. Like what you just said, Speedy, is 100% true. Like the laws are made by humans. It
is something that we as humans.
That's what subjective means. Like that's what subjectivity is.
Yes.
So.
Yes, exactly. But here's the thing: is that throughout culture, like if you study art history well, throughout culture, you will always see that the art that is displayed, the art that is found, always has a certain amount of that they all have certain similarities that come with the general experience of being human, right? They have, for example, all art, even the oh god, what was it called? Like the earliest piece of art found was the Venus of Willendorf. In the parts that are important to a certain culture, or in the culture that it comes from. The Venus of Willendorf is a small statue of what is assumed to be a fertility goddess. And so therefore, there are several parts that are very well, very well observed and also very well understood, right? Again, it comes down to the trained eye. The trained eye will see immediately how big is the understanding of the subject matter of the artist. Even if the rules of learning it are very different and the environment of it is very different.
This feels like circular. This feels really circular, because like academics made up this. Okay, I'm gonna call it art theory. I don't know if that's what you call it, but I'm gonna call it that.
Yeah, it's literally called art theory. Go on.
Okay, well, academics made up art theory, and then they taught that art theory to like the new academics, and then those academics taught it to them. So they kind of like they decided they were right from the beginning, and then taught that to everyone else. Why should we assume that they're right?
Because the art it's the same question as to ask why should we assume that any scientists are right. These are people who have dedicated their entire lives.
They have empirical evidence based on like they have empirical evidence based on like like observable truths of the universe. Like they didn't take like, for example, like the Earth rotating around the sun, right?
Well, that's what art historians do. Art historians do exactly that. What they do is they observe and study the history of things that have been made and find the links in between them.
Okay, what would you say is the best piece of artwork we have access to currently?
I think there is no one best piece of artwork.
Okay, well that sounds like a subjective then to me. Because if it was really easy to determine like this, like, all right, you need this criteria, you need this criteria, you need this criteria, if you have the criteria figured out, it should be really easy to determine which is the best piece of artwork.
No, but like
Well,
because
at some
we said
at
like
some point,
if you break
because-
down the art at a certain point, it becomes equal to all the other things. There's a line between subjectivity and objectivity that is being crossed as you get better at art and art maturity.
right? And here's the other thing: is like at some point, how do I put this? Like, if you say like saying that there is a singular best also means that like there is a level that only one can, like that there's a certain level that can keep going up and up and up and up, right? It's like saying
agree with that.
how do I put this? Oh yeah, like in a video game or going back to the RPGs, you know, at some point there's like you have, let's just say you play as a mage and you get to level 999, which is the highest level, right? Saying that there's a strongest mage would be wrong in that case, or wouldn't even be possible, because everybody who gets to level 999 is going to be like the strongest mage.
Okay, well, now let's take it to the science example.
Mm-hmm.
There is only one, like, scientific theory that is true, right? We might not know what it is yet, but any one rule we make about the universe, there is only one that is true.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we assume gravity is real. We make that assumption with the evidence that we have with us. It might be something else that explains why we don't fly away. But there is one true statement as to why we don't fly away. Can you say that for art? Let's say I wanted you to draw an ocean, a piece of ocean scenery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted you to make the objectively best piece of ocean scenery. Do you think that would even be possible?
No, I don't
It
think
depends
so.
on the criteria.
Well, then it's not objective.
It depends on the criteria. Like, if you really wanted it to be just, objectively skilled, I couldn't make it the best, but I could make it among the best. Because, again, like, at some point, there's only so good you can get. Again, you cannot get past the level 999.
I can give you I can't give you the best, but I can give you two, one of which is better than the other.
Okay,
Yeah.
So do you think that there's... Okay, well, let me ask you this question. Let's say we could somehow, like, transcend, like, our, the limitations that we have by being humans.
Mm-hmm.
And you had, like, infinite power.
Okay, that sounds
Do you
fun.
think you could then make the perfect ocean scenery piece of artwork?
Again, what's your criteria for perfect? If it's the most realistic, then yes.
Objectively the best. It's objectively the best.
Okay, so in that case, we're going just by skill. In which case, it has probably already been made.
So
I give every bet.
you think then that a piece of art should be based on just the skill of people working on it?
No, I never said that. I never even
Okay, so
implied
then-
that.
Okay, so then what does that have to do with it being objectively good? That could be a factor in what makes a
No,
show.
what I
you
said
think the
is
show makes
that
a good show
most
or not?
entertainment is created based upon the rules and the guidelines. They don't
I agree
break
with that.
them.
That's called convention, right?
Yes, pretty much, yes.
I would agree with convention. I can agree convention exists, but like, let's say I wanted to paint. Let's say the ocean scenery thing again, right?
Mhm.
I could paint with like really dull colors, or I could paint
Mhm.
with like a range of vibrant and dull colors.
Mhm.
Most people are probably going to say the range of vibrant and dull colors looks better, right? Most people would say
Yes,
that.
that is a
Does that make
that is called contrast. That is
Okay,
a very general
does
art
that make
theory rule.
does this make the vibrant and dull one objectively better than the just dull one?
Again,
Because the art
Pory,
the
you're
art
not,
theory
Pory, you are not getting the point here. The art maturity
mean-
just has to do with how well you understand the subject matter. What you do with that understanding is very different.
I feel like we're talking about different levels of objectivity, maybe.
No, we're not. Maybe what I'm telling you is, and again, maybe you don't understand that because you don't have the education for that. But here's the thing about art. Here's the thing about
Your
art
Sheila
maturity.
is showing.
I'm throwing all the shit in the world. Here's the thing about art maturity. Art maturity, the only thing that is about is the understanding of the subject matter, right? again, it's understanding. It's a very deep. It shows that you have studied well to a very deep degree what you are actually showcasing, right? That's all that art maturity is about. And how do I put this at this point? Most shows, most entertainment that we are subject to, that the common person is subject to, has actually a very high level of art maturity, right? Now here's the thing: is that the art maturity just means there's a certain understanding of it. The art itself is a different matter entirely. If you just go for perfect or for like best in that cases, it depends what you're going for. Are you going for marketability? Are you going for realism? You know, are you going for something else entirely? In which case, in those cases, it comes down to using the art maturity that you have gained and deciding on purpose, not because you don't know how to do it differently, but on purpose, to make certain choices that appeal to that specific goal that you're going for.
To bring it back to that one thing about painting an ocean, you're like, okay, one I will do with vibrant colors, the other one with dull colors. I think you can compare that to, for example, having multiple classes in an RPG. You're using different criteria to get to its best point, whereas you're still trying to both paint the best picture in a certain way, but those ways are different. But the moment you say, okay, one I'm going to purposefully try to do as best as I can, whereas the other I'm purposely try to not draw it as good as I can. There's definitely objectivity there, and some people don't have reached a level yet where they can draw something
where they can purposefully break the rules because they don't know them yet.
They cannot purposefully reach the highest level of the art they are making.
Exactly.
So, is what you base the quality of a piece of media on the level of skill of people making it?
Yes.
Because I don't know.
Well, usually.
I mean, maybe I agree. I think I grew out of like. I feel like I agree out of like necessity.
Why necessity? You can because
but not for the reason you're saying. Like, well, I can't really say. Okay, well, whatever. When the shows that I like the most are the ones that I connect to the most. And I would never say that makes this show better than, like, objectively better than another show. In fact, I don't think that statement is even like possible.
Yeah, I don't do that. Well,
because nobody's like, okay, so here's the reason. No two people's experience is the same, right? So, and that's kind of what art is. It's kind of trying to deliver an experience from one person to another. And until we get to the days where we can just like inject pure thought into another person, there's going to be some, level of abstraction that we have to go through by making it a show or a book or whatever.
Right. But here's the thing. It's like there's a big difference between what you like and what is good.
I disagree.
No, because my favorite movie, for example, is How to Train Your Dragon, right? But I don't think it's the best movie. I don't even think it's the best animated movie. Like, WALL-E is, in all accounts, the better movie. It just doesn't appeal to my personal taste because it doesn't have dragons in it.
So could you... Okay, so are you making... Okay, I hate this statement so much. Are you saying that... Like, this is probably my biggest pet peeve that people say, is when they say, I like this show, but I know it's bad, or I don't like this show, but I know it's good. That... Nothing pisses me off more than when people say that.
Okay, but why?
Because that implies that there is like this like authoritative like God essentially that can determine, that has like every single show ranked in order of how good they are, and has a line splitting where the good ones are and where the bad ones are. And I just don't believe that exists. I just don't think that you can I don't think you can like cite authority for something that doesn't that is like, I mean, I'm just saying it's because it's subjective, which is I should obviously agree with, but yeah, like you can't cite an authority for something that, like we don't even know what that authority would be. How can you cite authority for something that? Yeah, that's my point.
I mean, there's rules
Well,
into
for one,
writing
because
stuff.
Well, again, guidelines.
But you've already said that you could break all guidelines if you were good enough.
Yes, but
and
here's
make
the
an
thing.
amazing product. So
But here's the thing:
guidelines
is
don't
that,
matter.
and what I've also said is that to the educated eye, and that's the big part here. To the educated eye, there is a big difference between the drawing of the person who broke the rules because he doesn't know them and the person who broke them on purpose.
Okay, so do you think it would be possible that if we collected together the best art theorists throughout time, they could determine the greatest pieces of art? They could make this like this hallowed list of the best artworks.
I mean, they probably disagree a lot.
Well, yes, absolutely they would.
Because now,
but also,
and now I'm gonna go back to the circular thing because these theorists made up these conventions. Like some conventions are like just like psychology. They're just like people like these, so we're gonna do it. But I don't know if that's true for like all conventions though.
Well, art is mostly let's put it this way: visual art is mostly based on human psychology and math, actually. Literature art is a bit more ambiguous, but even then, like, do you know of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey?
Oh, the hero's journey is like.
Yeah, the like call to action and
right,
ordinary
exactly.
world and shit.
That is something that he put together after studying a ridiculous amount of artworks and finding this like throughout the entire world and finding the similarities in them. And even before the hero's journey, there was a convention that even had similar names throughout the world called the Medicine Journey. Do you know of the Medicine Journey?
No clue.
It's fairly similar to the hero's journey. There are a few more steps in between. It's a bit more free in like what goes and what doesn't. Let me think. Journey to the West is more of a medicine's journey, whereas, let's say, How to Train a Dragon is more of a hero's journey.
But like, there's like two narrative theories. They're similar, but they're not the same.
Exactly. They're similar, but they're not the same. But here's the thing.
It's almost like it's subjective what you think the guidelines should be for how to write a story.
Yes, but actually no. Because there is a sort... Again, they're very similar, right? And these are all things that people around the world, like... Guidelines like these had been found in Asia, in the Americas, in Africa, and even in Europe before Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, even with similar names, right? Which means that there's something in the human psyche that is similar enough that no matter where you are, no matter what culture you grow up in, there are going to be similarities. And that is what these rules and guidelines are based upon. But here's the thing, again, and here's the reason why every time Speedy says rules, I correct him to guidelines. They are exactly that. They are guidelines. They are not rules, right?
That's why I think it's subjective, because if it was objective, you would be able to make rules. You would be able to say, all right, if we do X, and then we do Y, and then we do Z, we will make a story that lots of people like.
Yes.
And that's true to an extent with the guidelines thing, but you could also not do X, not do Y, and not do Z, and people would also like it.
Yes, but how many times am I going to have to tell you that there's a big difference between the one who chooses to do so on purpose and the one who does that because he doesn't understand what the guidelines are in the first place?
Yes, okay, so I agree with you. I don't think it matters that much.
Right? That
distinction
doesn't matter
that distinction doesn't matter to me. I'm not too bothered about
one at a time
of the piece of
Absolutely
media.
not. I'm getting this one because the one who does these things because he doesn't understand what he's doing is still creating art. He's just not creating good art, right? The one who breaks them on purpose is creating good art. The thing is that the reason why
is it good?
Because he understands.
Why is it good?
Because he gets what he's doing. He knows what he is
doing.
doing.
So if you get what you... So the requirement of having good art is to know what you're doing.
Exactly.
All right, and who determines how you know what you're doing?
History.
Because, okay, so...
Human psyche.
And this hit... Okay, so it's observed preferences in people, and it's art theory, right?
And it's literally psychology.
Okay, do you think like
and
our
math.
perception of... Do you think our eyes and our ears are like objective measures of the world?
No.
Okay.
But they
So
are
if we're just observing patterns and then making conclusions by the patterns we're observing, but we're using subjective tools doing that, like our eyes and our ears, how can the conclusions we'd be drawing objective? Doesn't make sense.
Here's the thing, and it's very simple, is there is a measure of objectivity that people in general have agreed upon, and that is the understanding. It is an understanding of what you're doing. It's like saying, it's going back to math because you want to be objective so much, right? There's a big...
Well, that's what the question was.
Well, here's the thing about math is the person who gets all of the answers wrong on accident is not a good mathematician.
But the mathematician that gets all the answers wrong on purpose is?
Yes, because he understands what the actual he understands what's actually going on. He understands the actual question. He understands the equation. He could do it right if he wanted to. He just chooses not to.
This is why teachers don't give you full marks for a math question that you answered correctly but used the wrong way to get there, or used a completely incorrect way to get there, because you need to know what you're doing.
Well, I know this is going to sound pretty ridiculous, but what if the way they're getting there is actually fits into because like even math, I don't know if math exists in like, math is still a construct we invented. It was just we identified patterns in the way the world works and then found like a numerical system that like matches.
Yes, and that
Like
numerical
like
system is
the number
constantly being
one-
reworked depending on what we're observing.
Exactly.
In the universe.
Because our perceptions are not objective.
Yes, it's called the human margin of error. Anyways,
Exactly.
Yeah, that is literally a thing. Like, there is an entire scientific block that is dedicated to disproving everything that exists just because of that thing that we call the human margin of error. But
I agree with you.
But like, let's putting that out of the way, is that there again, going back to human psychology, right? Not even just human psychology, mammal psychology partly. Part of it is understanding that no matter no matter who you are, no matter what experience you have, even if you're a cat or a dog or a fish, if you see a straight line, it's going to you're going to associate that with stability. If you see a horizontal line, you're going to associate that with rest, right? If you see red, you're going to associate that with danger. If you see green, you're going to associate that with calm.
Because we've been conditioned to think that.
Colors have a lot of different meanings, to be honest. It depends on the context.
That's just like
no.
That's
Speedy,
like a basic
there's a difference between the meanings that we give them and the associations that come with us, that come since birth.
That's why like balls like
birth.
charge up like the red like pieces of fabric when you shake in front of them.
Right. And that goes
that's
even especially
that's like
more with
evolutionarily. That's like an evolutionary like
trait,
adaptation that we've made. Yeah.
Right. And similarly, pretty much everything that we have constructed, and again, just like in math, these things are ever changing, right? They're constantly evolving because we're constantly finding out more and more, because the rules are constantly changing, because we're constantly learning. But throughout the years, and you are correct, people do fight on, what are the exact definitions, how are things like, what is the best way to tell a story, what is the not best way to tell a story. That's the reason why in so many different cultures, stories are like, the stories are told in different ways. You are 100% correct on that. But there are general things that apply to every single human in the world, right? And those are the things that we judge them on.
So I have
when we judge objectively.
I have a very weird question then, because we're basing this on human/mammal/animal viewpoints.
Well, there's not much to base it on.
What if tomorrow there came aliens? Stay with me here. There came aliens and they were like, "What is this art? This is terrible. We have better art. This is our way of making art, and it's completely different. It's absolutely out of the field of what humans consider good."
This is kind of my problem with like acting like art is objective. I would agree that it's probably like theoretically possible to create a system that would make like the perfect art, quote unquote. But the problem is we have no way of accessing that information. It's kind of like morality. Like it's possible that there is like the ideal moral system, but we have no way of accessing that information. We just can't do it.
Well,
And
I don't
so
think there is such a thing as a perfect moral system for very different reasons. But the thing about art is, again, there is no such thing as a perfect art. You know, at some point, all the art is just at the same level once you have the understanding. And at that point, you know, at that point,
I think
you just
that's
have...
only true. I think that's only true until the alien comes down and gives us a better one.
Okay, fine. Allow me to rephrase. All of the art is at the same level at some point for humans. Happy now?
Yay!
Sure.
Okay.
Putting our discussion on the human experience alone, at some point, once you have reached a certain level of understanding, all of the art that you do is going to be on the same level. You know, that's basically when you've reached level 999, and from that point on, it's all about choices.
Okay, I have one more question. Okay, are you familiar with the thought experiment about the monkeys typing on the typewriters to write Shakespeare?
Yes.
Okay, do you think that if you, let's say this happened, right, and the monkey types on the typewriter and makes a Shakespeare play, which one's better, the Shakespeare play or the one the monkey wrote, even though they're the same?
You mean like the monkey writes a copy of a Shakespeare play that already you're gonna have to be a bit more specific.
So like,
yeah,
okay, so
that's the...
well, the thought experiment is that if an infinite amount of monkeys typed on an infinite amount of typewriters, eventually one of them writes Shakespeare, right? Like the monkey obviously has no intention of writing Shakespeare in this situation. Shakespeare had intention of writing Shakespeare, but the outcome is the same, right? They have the exact same product. So which product is better, or are they the same?
Literally the exact same product or product, two different products on the
no,
same level.
No, it's identical. It's identical. Every single letter is the same.
I think Shakespeare is...
That's a difficult question.
I think Shakespeare is because the monkey doesn't know what he's doing, whereas Shakespeare does know what he's doing because he has an understanding of the material and the reason why he's writing down those things.
Right. Here's the thing, though. Like, if you didn't know that, you would look at that and say,
yeah,
that is a work of art.
Point.
But here's the thing, here's the thing. It's like that's a thought experiment. You know, it's like Schrödinger's cat.
Yeah. I mean, I
like,
guess.
But when is that actually going to happen?
We're talking pretty outside of.
This is an anime podcast, guys.
We're talking about aliens coming down and giving us better art. You know, we're not exactly in the realm of probability. You know?
Like here's the thing. Like if you actually set the monkey down, what would happen in reality is even if he by accident got something that is like really really good. There would still be things to the educated eye where, you know, the person realizes that, wait a minute, this guy has no idea what he's doing. In which case it all falls apart.
I don't disagree.
And here's the next thing.
Okay, you can go.
Is that, going back to the topic of taste, is there's a very big difference between personal taste and educated taste. Like, I don't think that taste in general can be good or bad. You know, taste is taste. Like, personal taste is just like you said, Pory. You know, it's like, there is no good or bad. It just reflects you, the person you are, right? It reflects your personal taste. It reflects your experiences. It reflects you, you know, the art that you consume. It reflects you. And here I kind of want to refer everybody to a video by Sideways where he talks about, Sideways is a YouTuber who analyzes movie and video game music and educates at the same time about, you know, like music in general. And in that video particularly, he talks a bit about his experience at college, right? And how the more art theory and music theory and, you know, just music in general was pounded into his head, the more he was able to appreciate things that, you know, to the art of the average listener, to the ears of the average listener, sounds like complete and utter nonsense, because, you know, these are things that he wouldn't usually hear, or that he looks at in a different light now. Like, you know, like these singers that do really, really weird things sometimes, where you're like, what is that? You know, where they just do noises. To a music major, that is not just weird noises, that is, you know, a exploration of how to use the human windpipe, you know, the voice as an instrument, how far you can go with that, what you can do with that, and where the limits are, right? And the more educated you are, the more you appreciate things for different reasons. And so even if you cannot appreciate something on a personal level because it does not acquire to your taste, you begin to to appreciate things on a whole different level in terms of, like what it does for the art that you're in, what it does, the ideas that it gave you, the innovation that it has, things like that. So while I don't think there's good taste or bad taste, even if you can judge some things objectively, like even if something is objectively good, like at some point once you start breaking the rules or the guidelines, you can't really judge it objectively anymore. You can only judge them so long as they stay within the guidelines. Once you start breaking them, you cannot. But the things that are broken, that to some people may be like just like completely weird, or they might not think of it as good, or they might think of it as like a what the fuck did I just watch, or what the fuck did I just listen to kind of a thing. To the educated mind, or to the educated eyes and ears and whatnot, that has a completely different meaning, and therefore they may have an appreciation of it that the average person does not.
A long-winded explanation.
Sorry.
I mean, I think that's true for just like, not even for like educated versus the general public. That's just true for like anything. Like that's just true for anyone. Like a 3-year-old won't enjoy like The Shawshank Redemption, and you're probably not gonna watch like, you're probably not gonna see a 70-year-old watching, those like kids YouTube channels with like Elsa and Spider-Man and shit.
Mm. But here's the other thing: is that, at some point, like, yeah, your taste matures with you, but it only matures to a certain degree unless you really immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thing about the way that you value yourself, because let's say all you ever watch is shonen, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of your expectation. You don't expect anything that is too avant-garde, or too. It doesn't use the trappings of any other kind of genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to break into, maybe you're watching some super old shows, you're watching some like more art housey stuff, you're watching like kid shows even, your expectations kind of all meld together, and then you can concentrate more on what is like appealing to you, and then what is my conclusion?
I do think that in shonen you can create a masterpiece in shonen, and it can be on the same level as a masterpiece in slice of life or mystery.
Can you define masterpiece for me? I think we've had this conversation before, but not on the.
Because there are guidelines. Didn't say rules. There are guidelines. There are guidelines to writing a good shonen, as well as there are guidelines to writing a good mystery. There are guidelines to write a good horror, and at a certain point, it's just the same thing. Like it's different class in an RPG to compare it with. Everyone, if everyone is at level 99, the highest level, you can all say that they're all master classes, but the one is a rogue, the other is a paladin, and the other is a cleric. They're very different, but in their respective rights, they're all very good. But, Pory, so, do you personally think you have good taste then, or is that like something you don't believe in?
I don't believe in taste. Yeah, I believe taste exists, but I don't believe in good taste.
You don't believe in good taste.
There's just different.
And Sheila,
I
you
agree
also
with
said,
that. In that,
If somebody told me they.
yeah, go on.
Yeah. Because really, because the thing with saying I have good taste and you don't, I would feel bad. Like, let's say somebody's favorite show was like Sword Art Online. I would feel really bad saying your taste is bad, but the reason that it's their favorite show is because like their friends, they worked for like some kind of expedition group, and the scene where like they got like an episode whatever where the I forget her name. The chick who dies in like the treasure chest room.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if they said that scene was like the most powerful thing I've ever watched in my entire life, nothing could connect to me more than that scene. I'd feel like such a dick saying that their taste was bad.
Yeah, but sometimes you just gotta have to be a dick.
I can't empathize with that, like the emotional connection I have to that scene in any way. So, like, who am I to say that their taste is bad? I mean,
right,
I
but
agree with that basically. Again, no good taste or bad taste. Like, personal taste is personal taste. Taste can be educated or less educated, but it's never good or bad.
So, like, because then what are anime elitists all about? Because a common phrase...
Anime elitists are people who actually believe they have superior taste because they watch
it's a defense mechanism. What happens is they realize they spent like 7 years of their life watching cartoons instead of like doing something productive. And so to justify their behavior, they have to come up with some like twisted reasoning.
I mean, I watched Legend of the Galactic Heroes, so I am an elite.
True.
Right. We have nothing.
They have to come up with some twisted like they need to come up with some twisted like reasoning to justify their like really bad habit. And the conclusion they come to is that they're trying to like become enlightened, and everyone else is like a fucking moron.
There are people who believe have good taste, period. And like will say that everybody who does not share their taste is has like inferior taste.
Right. But then because would you say that anime elitists are akin to anime critics? They're basically the same thing because they have put so much time of their life into studying anime.
Well, the problem
is most anime elitists are just
like,
gatekeepers.
Academics.
Well, that's
yeah. The problem is like you do have like people like the old guard who have seen like 10,000 shows, and can name you like every industry technique, and give you like a 20-page thesis on the history and why it's useful and blah blah blah. And they are elitists, true. Well, maybe that. I mean, sort of by some definitions of what elitism is. But the problem online, a lot of elitists are just like they are really conscious, and they are they're deflecting their. Yeah.
But just because someone calls himself an elitist doesn't mean they are automatically an elitist.
And just because you
just like how someone says, "Oh, I have been to 500 museums in my life. I'm an art critic." That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference. It goes back to the part of understanding. Like, an art critic understands what he watches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just going, like, if you can go to all the museums in the world, you can watch all of the anime in the world, you know, if you cannot analyze why you think why the things that you're watching are good or bad, then, you know, it's like, okay, but, you know, like, you're not a critic that way. Just having watched a lot of anime does not make you a critic.
Right.
You know, the ability to have a deeper understanding of what you are watching, and then, especially for a critic, put that down on paper or video or whatever, and bring that out to the world. That is the important part. Right. Even if you've never only watched one anime in your life, you know, if you can break that anime down, then you're already a better critic than the people who have watched 10,000 of them and can barely tell you why they think one is good and one is not.
Would you say that the real elitists are the ones that can tell that can say good taste and bad taste doesn't exist?
I think the people who call themselves elitists are gatekeepers. That's all there's to it.
Right, but there's a difference between what the term actually should mean and what people say.
Okay, yeah, let's hit a Google on what elitism means.
Because I've watched this video by Econ about
that's a good video.
That's a good video, and he's like, I've studied a lot of anime, I've read a lot of stuff about anime, I've read art theory, this and that and that and that. I can call myself an elitist, and I think I have better taste. So there's a conflicting thing there then. There's a conflicting thing. I would love to have him here. I would love to have him here to explain.
Does he call himself an elitist seriously though, or does he just kind of like do that jokingly?
He calls himself I think he makes the separation that like I used to make this separation, but now I feel like I kill the people that I used to think of elitists as people who were like like academic in anime, which doesn't really in like anime theory, whatever that means. But now I think of elitists more as like this like
Gatekeepers.
self-conscious trying to deflect their regret of wasting their life.
Right.
Yeah, I now think of those people as elitists, and then I think of the other people as like more like academic types people.
But there's a there are two types of elitists basically. The ones that are serious about it, and the ones that are
and I also wouldn't call them elitists because
they're
Econ
academics.
has another video.
Yeah,
that's what they're all
Econ
about. They're academics.
Yeah, Econ has another video called "Anime is Ruining Your Taste."
Oh yeah. I've watched that one too. I think.
I need to watch some of these videos. I've never heard of that guy before.
Okay. So basically, he's making like similar, basically parroting what we're saying. Well, maybe we're parroting him. So he's talking about how he gives this anecdote about how a mate of his wanted to know more about anime, and so they watched like a bunch of old shows, and about how like, he watched like OG Gundam and didn't do anything, and so another thing he says is then he's talking about how anime elitism or like anime taste is not like a. It's not like a. I don't know what's the word. It's not like a. It's not. Yeah, it's not like a skill, right? Like, if you were trying to judge like a poker player, you would say a poker player who's like played a lot of poker, and has like achieved well in poker and makes money playing poker, whatever. It doesn't really work that way with anime because you could watch all the anime in the world and it doesn't make a difference. You could. You can still like give bad opinions. Well, not bad opinions, but you can still like, it's not as transfer. It's not a transferable like, you can't transfer a skill like poker, right? If you're like Daniel Negreanu, you can teach like a nobody how to play poker to a reasonable level. You can't teach anime watching to a reasonable level to somebody who's never watched anime before. It's
No, you literally cannot. The point of critics is also not really to, the point of critics is just to educate and to like tell people what the movie or the anime is about on a deeper level, right? But in the end, people are gonna like what they're gonna like. Period.
True.
They might like them for different reasons, right? It's kind of like Speedy, how you said, like when you first watched SAO, you were like, oh, this is good, and then you watched a critic on it and was like, oh, I guess I like bad things now. Like, this is actually really bad, and I guess I like bad things, right? But because of that, you might also have started or begun thinking, okay, but like, if it's bad, then why do I like it? It goes back to, I like How to Train Your Dragon more than WALL-E, despite the fact that WALL-E is a better movie because WALL-E doesn't have dragons.
That's why I hate that statement so fucking much. But
WALL-E doesn't have dragons.
That's why it's the worst. That's why that statement pisses me off so much. It's like
roll back to square one.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I mean, again,
if you say that, fuck off. Like.
Dude, Pory,
The end.
I don't know if you've noticed, but like you are explaining art to an actual artist. That's what you've been doing today.
True.
Is there a big difference between, say, an anime critic / elitist / academic and a movie elitist / academic, or a TV show academic,
I don't understand
whatever?
The difference.
I think that the distinction is much less.
Actually, here's a big difference, and that the thing is that like that difference kind of disappeared around the advance of YouTube, but before that, art critics usually studied.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were learned, trained academics. And I don't think there's a single anime reviewer out there who is an academic. Like, I know Arcada, he studied art. So, if I remember correctly, Arcada's an art major. Is that correct, Speedy?
I do not know much about Arcada. I have no idea about his life.
I mean, I might be wrong on this, but if I remember correctly, Arcada's an art major, so he has a bit more of an understanding than most other YouTubers do. But like most YouTubers, or like most AniTubers, or even most anime critics, are just general people who have watched a lot of it and have immersed themselves in it. But like in the end, they are self-taught. which can be valid, but the chances of that being valid are a lot less than if you actually study the thing with, people whose knowledge has, whose knowledge come from people whose knowledge came from somebody else, whose knowledge came from, knowledge stacked on top of each other. If you, if you are the newest generation of that.
Yeah, I think the way that they learn it is pretty backwards. Like they'll make a statement, and then people will either be like, "Wow, that was a really good statement," or they'll say, "That was a fucking stupid statement." And I'll go, "Okay, when I make an argument like that, everyone calls me an idiot, so I'm going to not do that anymore." And then eventually they'll figure out ways to make statements that people won't go, "You're a fucking idiot." Well, some people obviously will, because everyone does that, but they get to a point where they're like, "All right, most people don't call me an idiot when I talk like this way, so I'm going to keep talking about shows this way." Yeah, that's how they figure it out, I think.
Right. And most, at least before YouTube, nowadays, everybody puts up their opinions on YouTube and calls themselves a credit. But before YouTube, when where criticisms were mostly things you could find in actual published books or in newspapers, the people who wrote them were more often than not actual academics who had spent several years intensely studying the craft and the art under several masters and several, people who had done that their entire lives, giving them the tips and the tricks, and talking amongst each other and that's like really the big thing that Academy is good for, which self-taught artists don't have that much, or self-taught critics also don't, where they are in the academic settings and learn, inspire, and steal from one another. Where they learn, inspire, and steal from the masters, where, they learn and inspire and steal from the people above them, the people below them. Most critics before the advance of the internet, and especially of YouTube, were people like that. So I say there's a big difference between critics for films and literature and critics for anime.
Do you think an artist needs, or of any kind, needs an academic upbringing to become the best that they can be?
No. But it is I personally...
Weren't you talking about how they need to know about art maturity and etc.?
Yes, but here's the thing. That is something you can gain by yourself.
Yeah. I think so too.
I think you need
maybe
it,
I agree,
but you can
I
get it
agree.
by yourself. However, I absolutely recommend the academia because,
it's
how
an
do I
easier
put this?
route.
The people... Well, it's not really.
It's an easier route to becoming the best of yourself. It's not an easy way of...
It's the most direct path.
Yeah, the most direct path.
No, not even that. It's more complicated than that. It's more layered than that. Because there are very, very famous artists out there who are completely self-taught, right?
Yeah,
and
that's what I was thinking of.
Self-teaching helps you focus too on, what it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to learn, and you get to learn things at your own schedule and at your own pace, right? Chances are that because of that, it will take longer, and having the full education or the full scope of it, chances are you're not going to have it unless you're somebody completely extremely talented. What academia gives you is, for one, what I said, the community. In that, people bouncing off of each other, bouncing off of your classmates, learning from one another, being inspired from one another. And the other part is, there are several parts of that, is learning to work under deadlines, because for artists, even for critics, that is super important. And a lot of self-taught artists do not have that. The teamwork is the other part that academia gives you that you can't get by yourself as a self-taught artist. Even health things sitting, it's especially important for musicians, is doing your art with the correct posture, with the correct with the correct movements to make sure that you don't injure yourself. And then the last thing that you absolutely cannot get by yourself is the connections.
To get ahead in the art world, in your field. Because you need to know people. Mm-hmm. And while you can get the skills without academia, even if for most people it will take much, much longer, you can absolutely get the skills. You can get the art maturity without the academia. You can learn the rules, you can get the understanding, you don't need the academia to go to an open figure drawing session in the next town over.
and study the human body. But you do need the academia if you want to understand the human body in a month. Because you're gonna need teachers to tell you what to focus on, where your problems are, what you need to work on, what the possibly best next step is for you. These are things you cannot figure out by yourself, not in that short amount of time.
And when I started this episode of the podcast, I was thinking there's gonna be a lot of bad takes or good takes on what is good taste and what is bad taste, but I don't think any of us really believe in good taste. So that's what we think. So let's instead say, are there anime out there that people say are masterpieces that you do not think are masterpieces, that do not belong in that category?
I don't believe in masterpieces, to be honest. I don't think that's a real thing.
Okay.
Unless we're going to say that masterpiece is like something that is like enjoyed like universally.
I mean that's different because that's more of a popular thing, right?
If you said if you gave me that as your definition, then I would say they definitely exist. But that's pretty. I don't believe in masterpieces.
I mean, visual art is literally
if it's like a 9 out of 10 of a 10 out of 10, you could say it's of the high of the upper.
Okay, well, I know what I would say is a masterpiece. But that's because they're like my favorite shows. That doesn't mean that,
I mean,
I absolutely don't think that way. Again, How to Train Your Dragon is my favorite movie. I would not think by any means that it's a masterpiece because it has so many problems. I mean, here's the thing: is it was pounded into me, in high school or maybe even like middle school age that a masterpiece, like the original definition of a masterpiece, is a piece literally just created by a certificated master of his craft. And that's what I've been going with ever since. Like, that's my mindset to it, so...
Oh, okay. If that's true, then I mean, that's like, you can't even deny that... Okay, if that's what we're going by, then yeah, obviously I agree with that.
I mean, that's you know, when people say masterpiece, I just, like, again, I just think of something that is, like, really, really good. Like, probably, like, one of the best in its, in, you know, whatever it's trying to do.
When someone says masterpiece to me, I think of, like, there are these, you know, these mythical, like, top 10 pieces of media that are just, like, so insane that everyone needs to watch them, or they haven't, you know, fully lived a life because they haven't seen these things, which I don't believe in.
But, you know, like, what counts as a masterpiece, how do I put that,
You called Cowboy Bebop a masterpiece because it excelled so much in character study and in character writing.
Yeah, so, like, masterpieces, in the modern sense, like, the way they are used, I think of things that, you know what, that's difficult. Keep talking, I need to think about this for a minute.
Keep talking.
Yeah, you two keep talking.
What are we gonna talk about, Pory? How's the weather today?
Like, you can keep talking about the topic.
I'll just explain quickly why I don't believe in masterpieces. So, it basically comes down to the whole subjectivity thing. The problem I have is that you need to have, like, a group of people. Well, I mean, I guess you don't need to, but you need to have this group of people decide what the masterpieces are. And I don't know if it's like, can something be a masterpiece like today and then like tomorrow it's not anymore? Like, does that change? Like, what a masterpiece mean? Like, what? Like, that seems a bit.
Well, I think I think actually, Pory, that's a really good point. Like, one thing about a masterpiece is that it needs to stand the test of time.
I was thinking the exact opposite. Isn't a masterpiece tied to the time it was made in?
Well, yes, but also it stands the test of time, meaning that despite the fact that it is tied to what it was made in, it's still regarded as such, you know, like several years, decades even later.
Right, but nothing is gonna stand the test of time eventually. Everything will fade, everything will become outdated.
I think you could take any piece of art and go, this piece of art would be better if we changed this small detail. And that might take like 200 years for people to realize what detail to change. But does that mean if you so let's say, I don't know, we have picture A, right? and pitch A was made 500 years ago, and now I've made pitch A, but I realized that there was like this small mistake in the top right corner, and so I fixed the mistake in my version. Is my version a masterpiece, or their version isn't, or is their version a masterpiece and mine's not? Or are they both masterpieces? Like,
God, these
mine is,
questions are difficult.
Yeah, Pory, you're being like, in all honesty, you're being a bit too you're being a bit too mind experimental for the discussion that we're trying to have.
Really? I don't know.
I mean, maybe he's not. It's wonderful. These kinds of things are very fun to think about, but I don't think I can give you an answer to that question. That's
yeah. That's why.
Well,
that's
mine
another
would
reason.
be-
It just
mine
seems
would be
silly to
that-
be able to have to think about that.
My answer to that would be like yours wouldn't be the masterpiece because you're basically just copying what has already existed.
But I made it better.
no, but like that's like saying, oh, I'm reading a story. There's a typo here. I fixed the typo.
Something in hindsight.
I fixed the typo. Now I've made a better masterpiece. Technically, it's a little better, but you've added 1% instead of making the entire 100%.
Okay, so, I mean, to be honest, maybe this is just like me being super silly. I don't really care about anything but the product. Like, I just want a good product. I don't care how we got to the product. I just want a good product.
Yeah. I can get that.
Right, but think about it. Like if you have two products that are almost similar, right, or almost the same, the only difference is that one little piece is different.
Okay.
Then here's where like one part of the product is also when was it created. Like yes, your product is better.
Why?
That is absolutely 100% true. Is that yours is better, but you didn't create it. You didn't make it.
Plagiarism.
Well, okay. Well, let's say I don't take credit for it. Let's say I was like, it's
like Speedy said. It's like Speedy said. It's still plagiarism. You're plagiarizing.
I mean, I guess. But
oh man.
That's what it is.
it's like it's better. I don't care. It's better.
So many thoughts.
But you're still plagiarizing.
I just want good products.
That's fair. That's very fair.
That is fair. But okay, so here's what I like after thinking. Like, I might change my mind on this in the future. I probably will. But for the moment, I would say like what a masterpiece is something that a large majority collectively agrees is one of the best at its craft and excels at what it's trying to do.
Okay, if that's our definition, I agree that it exists because, I mean, I agree that there's like a consensus on what must be like on what is good or not.
Right.
It's just to me that definition is a little bit boring, but if that's the definition we're using, I agree that there are masterpieces. I'm fine with
I
agreeing
think that is like in general that is the definition that most people use when thinking of a masterpiece, like or when calling something a masterpiece. And here's the fun thing, actually, like. Most things that are generally regarded as masterpieces, I would agree, are masterpieces, yes.
Because most people agree with the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can disagree on a personal level, right? And that's what I was talking about here.
Yeah.
On a personal level, I don't think, at least in terms of anime, there are no hot, like, let's say, like, no, the things... there are hot takes always, but like most things that are, there's nothing that like the big collective agrees on as a masterpiece where I would say, no, I don't think so. No, I don't agree with that.
So would you say that majority ratings on sites like Anime Planet or My Anime List are indicators of what are and aren't masterpieces?
No, actually.
I mean, I guess. But the problem with those sites is the scores are real because most people rate positively because most people have a positive experience watching stuff, and so there's a huge concentration of everything being rated 7 and 8 out of 10 because most people will be like, I enjoyed watching this, I'll give it a 7 or an 8.
Right.
And so
they're not thinking about it as well. This is because there's a difference between a general population saying, oh, this is good, and art critics saying this is good. There's a difference there. So.
And I think the masterpiece is when both of them
I
agree.
score on my anime list is I take every single other show. When I finish a show, I'll look at every other show, and I'll say, all right, it's not as good as this one, but it is better than this one. So this one's a 6 and this one's a 7. So I guess I'll put it in like as a high 6. That's my scores are basically just like a tier list of everything I've ever watched.
It's kind of I do mostly on feeling, and a little bit like you. Like, okay, I can't give it a 7 because I didn't like it as much as this.
I can normally guess roughly. It'll be like, yeah, this is probably a 7, and I'll scroll down and be like, actually, maybe it's a 6 because all these 7s are better. Yeah. But
like the way I rate my shows is I give like I'm not on Anime Planet, so like I am on Anime Planet. I'm not on my anime list, so I only have ratings up to 5. But basically, you know, like the first 4 points are all for, you know, like how good is the show on, you know, like on the rules and guidelines level, you know, like how well is the story written, how good is the animation, sound design, writing, and so on and so forth. And then the last point is all about personal enjoyment, you know, does it hit the right beats for me?
Yeah, for me I don't follow any guidelines when I rate my shows. My ratings are entirely enjoyment based. Do I like it? How much did I like it? How do I feel about it? And it can change depending on how long ago it's been. Sometimes I think, oh, I still have fond memories of this. But I do not usually think of any guidelines. Like, did it do this and this and this and this well, and this didn't do well? I just...
Right.
It's...
And I also don't think, like, anime... like the lists such as Anime Planet and my anime list are like really good indicators of what are masterpieces, because, you know, things that are generally thought of as masterpieces such as The End of Evangelion and Akira have relatively low scores. Like Akira has like 4 out of 5. Evangelion I think has like a 4.2 or something out of 5. So, you know, with like others like Gintama, for example, having like 4.6s, or Demon Slayer, which I would not exactly call a masterpiece. I don't know, maybe it'll stand the test of time, and at some point it will be. Having a much higher rating than, you know, Neon Genesis Evangelion. I would not call them good or like good indicators of what are masterpieces, because like one thing that needs to happen, I think, is that both critics and general audiences collectively agree, both of them together, that it's a good show. And in many cases, especially for the masterpieces, like general audiences are a bit divided on whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can do the YouTube thing and say to the audience, tell us in the comments what you think a masterpiece is.
Right.
Question of the day.
Question of the day. Give us your answers. We are very interested.
Oh, I can already see the shitstorms on my hot take on art.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is gonna be a wonderful one. But I do think we've come to the end of our queries and what we want to discuss. I think we've mostly exhausted all of our conversation. Or do
Have
you?
we now?
Do you have anything to add? Do you want to say something? If that's so, we can continue. But...
Oh, okay, I'll just say this.
Yes.
I was talking about how it pisses me off when people say I like this show but it's bad. The only other thing that pisses me off when people say is when they say this show was and then good or bad. Don't say was, say is. It's the same now as it was yesterday, as it was 10 years ago.
I agree.
Stop saying was, say is, please. It's fucking drives me insane.
And with that knowledge,
Okay, but I want to ask you one more question.
Okay, go for it.
Because Pory, again, like when you say that you really, really hate it, that, you know, when people say I like it but I know it's bad, again, going back to like the example of my favorite movie being How to Train Your Dragon, like, the reason I like it is that there are dragons in there, okay? Anything that has dragons in there, I'm immediately
more
going
power
to
to you. Fucking, that's sick. That's my opinion. Cool.
Okay, so wonderful. But, like, in what way is that a criteria of something being good?
It doesn't have to be criteria. Who cares? It's your experience, not mine. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. So I can like it thinking that it's shitty, but it has dragons, so I'm gonna like it.
Sure, go for it. Like, I don't...
Yeah, but why does that piss you off so much? That's what I don't get.
Because if you like... People... I mean, I can't imagine another context where people would say this. Like, could you imagine going to a meal and being like, this tasted really. I thought this tasted like shit, but I know that it's actually an amazing meal. Like, shut the
No,
fuck
but
up.
true. No, I think that's right. I
No,
think you
that's
can say
nonsense.
that.
That's
You
ridiculous.
can I think so too.
I just don't like certain foods, but my mother knows how to cook a meal.
Alright. True. Okay.
My dad is literally a 5-star chef. Okay. You're coming to this with me the wrong topic.
Product. This is the product thing again. The only thing I care about is the product and my experience of the product. Nothing else matters. So if
Nothing else
if I didn't enjoy the product, I don't care. Like I don't.
If your mother cooks cooks a wonderful meal, but it has one thing in it that makes it for you absolutely shitty, you would tell her, "Oh, this is the worst thing you've ever cooked."
No. I would say this part was really good. This part was really good, but please don't make this again. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Please don't make this bit again, right? If like that's.
Does she usually listen to that?
No. Worth a shot. Worth a shot.
Worth a shot. And with that, I do think we should really end it here. This was no, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna end it like that. It was wonderful to say.
It was a very interesting discussion.
It was a very
Please
interesting.
leave your opinions in the comment. We want to see all of the hot takes. Don't worry. To me, at least, you can be mean. I'm not gonna cry.
Probably
but do
not
go
gonna
easy
cry.
on Speedy. Do go easy on Speedy and Pory. They are soft boys.
What do you
cry?
Even if they
no,
don't.
Pory isn't, but I am. I cry at least once a day. No. Well, that's it then. We will see you in the next one, I guess. Bye-bye.
Bye.